Around the world, the rivers of ice we call glaciers are in retreat. Most of the planet's fresh water is locked in glacial ice. But since 1980, significant global warming has meant that glaciers from the Himalayas to the Andes are melting. This is already leading to a rise in sea levels. At present, alpine glaciers in temperate regions are most severely affected, changing the nature of regional water supplies. Island nations in the Pacific are suffering from a rising ocean, with gardens contaminated by salt and houses threatened by storm surges. In the Himalayas, the changes have been so dramatic that water supplies to Pakistan, Afghanistan, Mongolia and Western China are facing radical change. At the Mer de Glace glacier in the French Alps, hikers now face a 120-metre climb down to reach the ice. In living memory, climbers could step directly onto the glacier's surface. This group of French students is recording some of the changes. They say warmer and longer summers are melting ice and snow more quickly than it can be replaced in winter, the result of global warming. 150 years ago, this is what the Mer de Glace looked like. And this is it today. The Mer de Glace, located on the northern slopes of Mont Blanc, is France's largest glacier. It was once visible from the Chamonix ski resort, but that was a long time ago. Although its rate of flow at around 1 centimetre per hour is not visible to the naked eye, it is regarded as a fast-moving glacier. With a length of 5.6 kilometres and an ice depth of 200 metres, the Mer de Glace is the second biggest glacier in the European Alps. The local economy, closely tied to the ski industry, has been badly affected by a series of poor snow seasons. Where in the past, ski runs were closed because of too much snow, now the resorts are dependent upon snow-making machines to guarantee some skiable snow. Because the decline in the world's glaciers is seen as one of the most obvious symptoms of global warming, they are being closely monitored. Scientists at the Glaciology Laboratory in Grenoble are studying 5 French glaciers in an effort to understand the implications of the changes to these rivers of ice. Glaciologist Christian Vincent says the balance has changed, with warmer summer temperatures leading to increased rates of melting. The question is, will the glaciers stabilise at a new shorter length or dwindle to nothing? From Norway to Switzerland, glaciers across Europe have been in decline since 1980. Low-level ski resorts in the region have been badly hit by the change in weather patterns. Though there is snow, it is patchy and skiing conditions are not ideal. Over the past few years, some of these low-altitude resorts have not even bothered to open. High-altitude ski resorts are still able to function, though with reduced activity. But it is not just the ski industry that is being affected by reduced levels of precipitation. Meltwater from the snowfields and the Mer de Glace are used to generate electricity, and local power authorities are looking to the Grenoble laboratory for an indication of what conditions will be like if the warming trend continues. The Grenoble laboratory has a range of specialised equipment used for gathering core samples from the glaciers. The 5 French glaciers are all studied according to the same protocols. The research program is funded by France's Research Ministry. The Grenoble team measure variations in volume and in thickness, as well as the glacier's rate of movement and variations in their lengths. With his team, Christian Vincent heads out several times a year to record how much snow has melted over the summer and how much has fallen during the winter. The data collected will form part of a series of observations that goes back, in some cases, as far as 100 years. The measurements allow the team to assess the glacier's health and at the same time give an indication of climate change. Each spring, the team records the winter snowfall at the Glacier du Telefre and the Glacier de l'Echaux, which flow into the Mer de Glace. Samples are obtained by boring into the snow at different parts of the glaciers. To ensure that comparisons over a long time scale are as accurate as possible, the researchers return to the same sampling locations year after year. These observations have been made for the past 50 years, building up a clear picture of the evolution of climate over the recent past. From the core sample, various measurements are recorded, so the scientists can determine the glacier's mass balance. It is becoming clear that climate change is responsible for causing variations in both temperature and snowfall, which in turn affects the mass balance. Vincent says that glaciers fascinate the public both because of their stunning natural beauty and because they are the most stark reminder of the effects of global warming. Their decline is obvious to those who have been living near the glaciers over the past few decades. In March 2008, the United Nations Environment Programme published a study which found that glaciers are shrinking at record rates, and many could disappear within decades. Scientists measuring the health of almost 30 glaciers around the world found that ice loss reached record levels in 2006. On average, the glaciers shrank by 1.5 metres in 2006, the most recent year for which data is available. The most severe loss was recorded at Norway's Bredal-Blikkbrea Glacier, which shrank 3 metres in 2006, while Chile's Aquara Norte Glacier was the only one to grow slightly thicker. The study was based on the findings of the World Glacier Monitoring Service, a Zurich-based body. Glaciologist Christian Vincent estimates that if temperatures continue to trend towards a rise of 3 degrees Celsius by the year 2100, glaciers below 3,400 metres will disappear within several decades. Summer in Greenland, and melting ice forms lakes on the glaciers and the ice sheet. The latest research suggests that Greenland's glaciers are moving faster and shedding ice into the Atlantic Ocean at twice the rate they were just 5 years ago. The Kangerlussuaq Glacier on Greenland's east coast is now one of the world's most rapidly retreating glaciers, and scientists think that the extra meltwater acts as a lubricant, allowing the glacier to accelerate. The Kangerlussuaq Glacier has an ice depth of 1 kilometre and a width of more than 7 kilometres. Using high-precision GPS, scientists from the Climate Change Institute at the University of Maine have determined that this huge ice mass is travelling towards the sea at 38 metres per day. There is enough fresh water locked in the Greenland ice sheet to cause a 7-metre rise in the world's ocean. Any change in the rate at which Greenland's glaciers transport ice from the ice sheet into the ocean has serious implications for sea levels around the world. There are also fears that the increase in fresh water from the melting glacial caps could dramatically change the salinity of the oceans and alter ocean currents responsible for the redistribution of heat across the planet. This would have drastic consequences for global weather patterns. Although there is a marked decrease in ice at the edges of the Greenland ice sheet, there is a build-up of ice in the island's interior. Whether this is a new evolution of the ice sheet or the result of random climatic variation that makes it harder to observe any new trend will become obvious over the next decade. The Greenpeace ship Arctic Sunrise is also documenting the impact of climate change on Greenland's ice sheets and glaciers. In the tropics, glaciers can only exist on the cold peaks of tall mountains, like Mexico's Pico de Orizaba. El Pico overlooks the valley and city of Orizaba, after which it is named. At the Itzapopo National Park, south of Mexico City, park officials and scientists have noticed a dramatic change in the size of local glaciers over the last few decades. Studies are being carried out to see whether the proximity of cities could be causing glaciers to melt. Most tropical glaciers are much smaller than their cousins closer to the poles. Even so, scientists say glacial melt in the tropics could hit farms and cities across Latin America by reducing water availability and hydropower generation. On Iztaccíhuatl, a dormant volcano and one of two white-capped peaks that can be seen from Mexico City, glaciers have shrunk about 70% since 1960. Popocatépetl, Mexico's second highest peak at 5,452 metres, is an active volcano. It has one major glacier, but eruptions have confused the picture. Rainfall patterns in the area have changed, possibly because of local factors such as deforestation. Park officials are working with local communities to provide income alternatives to illegal logging and have embarked on major reforestation programs. The scientists are looking to Iztaccíhuatl for a measure of how Mexican glaciers are faring in the age of human-generated climate change. The size of glaciers isn't generally measured in length, since that will vary rapidly according to the amount of snowfall. They are measured by their depth and their ice mass. The largest glaciers on Iztaccíhuatl are about 80 metres thick, and in the past 15 years, some have reduced by 20 to 30 metres, according to the park's own measurements. But the reduction varies on different parts of the mountain. Because of the melting, streams fed by glaciers are at present continuing to flow well. But without replenishment of the mountain ice, these waters will soon fail. If these vital streams stop flowing, the vast area that relies upon their waters will quickly be thrown into drought. Southeast of Pico de Orizaba is one of the world's premier radio telescopes. The area is a scientific hotspot, with other researchers focusing on the high mountains and their ice flows. Guillermo Ontiveros is a glaciologist. He is planning a comparative study between glaciers on El Pico and Iztaccíhuatl. He suspects that the closeness of cities is affecting the disappearance of the glaciers. In Bolivia, the Chacaltaya Glacier above La Paz looks like it would disappear within 12 months, provoking mass water, food and electricity shortages. People here also rely on glacial meltwater, but the infrastructure is more informal. Agriculture relies on groundwater drawn from wells. In the city, large areas also draw their own water, with wells forming a major part of La Paz's water supply. On the outskirts of La Paz, in the underprivileged area of El Alto, running water is regarded as a luxury. Here, Julio Mamani has 6 children and a wife. All of them rely on water from a hand-dug well. All the water comes from the nearby mountains. Julio's family realise that the water situation is changing and that soon the region could be plunged into crisis. Water is needed to drink, to wash in and for cooking. Without it, they cannot live. Most of El Alto's 80,000 residents don't even have a well. They rely on a nearby stream running down from the Chacaltaya mountain. That stream and the groundwater that Julio's family relies on could soon dry up because the glaciers on the Chacaltaya are disappearing. 10 years ago, the 5,600-metre-high monolith used to be dominated by its glacier, making it a popular destination for cold weather adventurers. Now, the glacier has receded dramatically. The snowline has receded so far already that a once popular ski resort has been completely shut down. There simply is never enough snow, and the Chacaltaya Glacier is melting faster than it can replenish itself. Glaciers act as the world's water towers, and the Chacaltaya supplies most of El Alto and 60% of La Paz's 1 million residents. Without water, the region's hydroelectric system will collapse, and with no water for irrigation, severe food shortages will develop. The world is just starting to grapple with global warming, but it's probably too late for El Alto. Argentina's South Patagonian icefield is the world's third largest expanse of continental ice, after Greenland and Antarctica. Experts from the Argentine government science agency CONICET reported that the Viedma Glacier, located in Argentina's southern Santa Cruz province, has retreated 1 kilometre in length since 1930. Greenpeace has mounted a campaign against global warming centred on the find, which follows on from similar reports of mass losses in the nearby Uppsala Glacier. Both the Viedma and the Uppsala glaciers are part of the South Patagonian icefield, and scientists warn that the melt is going on not only in these large fronts, but across the field. The South Patagonian icefield has 45 major glaciers. Further north in Argentina, on the shores of Lake Naguiliapi, live some of the world's most ancient trees. Called alerces, they are incredibly slow growing, and they can live for over 2,000 years, reaching heights of more than 50 metres. Researchers from across the world come to study the alerces. They hold clues about the Earth's past temperatures and have been important to conclusions on climate change. These trees are amongst the oldest living things on Earth. Like all trees, alerces form a new layer of wood under their bark every year. So samples of the trees, taken straight through the core, allow researchers to gauge what the weather was like in each year of the tree's life. Argentine geoscientist Ricardo Villalba was one of the contributing authors to the Nobel Prize-winning United Nations Climate Change Report. He studies the growth rings of the alerces, and here is taking a sample from an 800-year-old specimen. They reveal that in some sectors of Patagonia, the year 1998 was the hottest in the last 400 years, and there are marked tendencies that have occurred over the last few decades that have no precedent in the last 400 or 500 years. Back at the nearby Puerto Bles Biological Research Station, Villalba has been able to compare those results with other leading scientists.
And this is the
Evidence from tree rings is what scientists call proxy data, meaning they know the data is not exact, but if it agrees with other proxy data, it can be used to make real conclusions.
They are sympathetic.
Ice cores and evidence of glacial retreat in the same region have all added to the data from Villalba's tree rings. The scientists have also been able to use their proxy data to test computer models used for predicting climate changes in the future. The tree rings show that the temperatures during the 20th century were anomalously warm across the southern Andes. At their worst, mean temperatures over the last century went up 0.86 of a degree Celsius when compared to temperatures in the previous 260 years. When the work is completed, it will provide a new source of data currently only available from ice core samples, ocean sediments, and ancient pollen samples. That will help scientists develop a clearer picture of long-term climate change, going back far beyond all human records, which only started in 1856, when the British Meteorological Society began collecting records. Norway's Brilvi River, fed by the Nigadsbreen Glacier, was one of the challenges in a week of kayaking extremes. In 2006, 4 of Europe's best paddlers met to redefine the limits of modern kayaking, with descents on never-paddled rivers and high waterfalls. The athletes travelled more than 1,500 kilometres around the wilds of southern Norway. Norwegian Shorshi Schaff was joined by Swiss rookie Florian Dillier and Germans Tim Weinmann and Markus Hummel. The kayakers had only one goal: to explore and master extreme rivers and waterfalls. One of the highlights was the navigation of the Stori Frøya, 2 waterfalls of the highest level of whitewater difficulty. After they had completed the ascent to the top of the mountain, they scouted the location and then abseiled around 50 metres to this inaccessible spot. First up was Schaff. No difficulty with the 5-metre waterfall. Then Hummel on a 12-metre waterfall. In the upper reaches of the Tora River, the paddlers took on a triple combination. Not every move went according to plan, but Shorshi Schaff's experience ensured he came away unscathed. The week was less a competition than a test of skills, but the 4 paddlers judged themselves to come up with a ruler of the week. The waters near the Niggedsbreen Glacier had never before been challenged. Here, the water was so cold that only Hummel entered the Brilvi River. In a sad postscript, Tim Weinmann died the following year. But the prize for the most extreme ice sport must go to the glacier surfers. At the Childs Glacier on the Copper River in south-central Alaska, collapsing ice generates tsunami waves of up to 8 metres. Hawaii tow-in surfing team Garrett McNamara and Kiali Mamala became the first and possibly last surfers to successfully ride the glacier waves.